All right, guys, we do have a big update on the Oakland Athletics situation with them very likely moving to Vegas. Take a little look-see at this. The Oakland mayor meeting with Rob Manfred, trying to pitch for the A's to remain in Oakland. I'm going to kind of come at it from a different angle and tell you what I think's going on here. There was a huge ballpark concept that was released via PDF files, and unfortunately, I couldn't get a lot of those PDF files to load. I was able to get some of them. Basically, the rendering is the exact plan that we've already seen at Howard Terminal with the surrounding area, kind of with the different, forest vibe. You've got that garden going around the upper deck, and then you've got a number of apartments overlooking the ballpark. That is the current pitch, and it's a crazy 200-page proposal. You might be wondering, why would the A's come forward with this and the city of Oakland come forward with this if it's basically a guarantee the Athletics are moving to Vegas? Because I think the city of Oakland right now is positioning themselves to try and be 1A on the list of expansion candidates. We did have something like this happen back in the mid-90s with the Cleveland Browns losing their team to Baltimore because of bad ownership, and then just 3 years later getting a team back. You've got full renderings, you've got a full 200-page proposal down to like all the blueprints on how the trees would be grown. Like, if you take a look at that PDF, if you can get it to load, I believe it's on The Athletic, which is kind of annoying, but you can get around the paywall if you go to reader mode and take a look at it. If you get the PDF to load, it is very detailed. I do think the city of Oakland is trying to put themselves in position to say, look, we have a proposal. You said we didn't have one. Now we have one. It's right here. The mayor meets with Rob Manfred during the All-Star break, at the events in Seattle. I do think Oakland is trying to position themselves to get an expansion team, and when it comes to the odds of them getting an expansion team, that's where things get really complicated, because Oakland, they do have a very good TV deal. They do have a big market. The problem is they have had horrible attendance for over 2 decades now, even with a lot of those A's teams being very competitive. But the big question, is the bad attendance based on lack of fan support, or is it based on being in the worst stadium in MLB, the only remaining multi-purpose stadium, the Oakland Coliseum with Mount Davis? That's the big question for MLB, and I've been saying this for a while. We have the clear and obvious choice when you're looking at the eastern side of the United States. It's Nashville and it's Charlotte. I would say that is the short list for MLB expansion. You're going from 30 teams to 32 teams. You're having the A's move to Vegas, and then you're doing the expansion. But what about West Coast? Well, it's looking like Salt Lake City and Portland. I don't love either of those options. Kind of smaller markets. Portland is losing population. Could Oakland say, listen, if we get a new stadium, take a look. We've got a big population. We've got a really loyal fan base. Yes, our attendance has been bad, but that's because we've been dealing with one of the worst stadiums for the past 2 decades. Would MLB, look at the options, whether it's Oakland, Salt Lake City, and Portland, and say, Oakland has the biggest population. Oakland has the biggest market. They had a good TV deal. We're going to Oakland and we're doing a Cleveland Browns thing where maybe Oakland loses their team for 3 years, but then they get the expansion team. There's a lot at play right now. I do think it is a possibility. And, this whole idea, the whole story is kind of marketed as this is the A's last-ditch effort. This is the city of Oakland's last-ditch effort to keep the team. I think that ship has sailed. When you look at the A's moving to Vegas, they have already started the process. All that's really left when it comes to the hurdles, I would say there's a few different things, but the big one is getting owners' approval. That seems like it's definitely going to happen. I'm sure the owners are going to say a few things to make sure this goes smoothly and probably want a good deal on it. But either way, it's very likely going to be approved by the owners. And then another thing that I saw, somebody alerted me this on Twitter, the original ballpark renderings that we got where the Vegas ballpark is on 9 acres. Everyone's saying that's ridiculous. It looks way too big. It looks, way smaller than 9 acres. There's very few ballpark footprints that are smaller, than 9 acres. Apparently, those original renderings were rushed and they're going to completely redesign. I don't know if that means they're going to change the entire stadium look, because the renderings that we got, it was like a capsule, half-closed, massive overhang, retractable roof. Very, very strange. I criticized it for lack of outfield seating. It made it look like a minor league stadium. So I'm hoping we do get new renderings. It is going to be a very tight fit on that Tropicana site, but I did want to alert everyone to that. So right now, I do think this is a situation where the city of Oakland is understanding, John Fisher. Everyone knows it's a horrible situation, but it is looking very likely they will be moving and it will be official to Las Vegas. They're already advertising in Vegas on billboards talking about the Athletics coming. This seems like, Manfred saying, we don't have a pitch for Howard Terminal. We don't have a pitch. Well, here is a 200-page pitch outlining everything. And Oakland is trying to put themselves right now as a top expansion option when it comes to that. And then, guys, take a look at this. Progressive Field renovations on tap following All-Star break. Cleveland Guardians fans will be attending games in what's to become a work zone as Progressive Field renovations are set to begin after the All-Star break. I originally got very excited because I thought they were ripping out the shipping containers in the right field upper deck during the games, like they were doing construction. But apparently, I would have went to a Guardians game if they would have done that, and I would have videoed it and put it on my channel. But apparently, they're just taking out like a little kiddie area, and then they're doing all the bigger renovations in the offseason. But yes, a Progressive Field following the All-Star break, there's going to be construction during the games because these renovations are very big, and apparently they can't complete all of them in the offseason. But the big part of this renovation, a complete redo of the right field upper deck, and then also they're taking out upper deck seats down the third baseline as well. So it's really sad to see what's happened to Progressive Field. It is one of the more underrated stadiums in MLB, but it did receive a horribly botched renovation, so people really don't like it, and that's why it routinely gets ranked outside of the top 15. It really is a sad story. And then this one last thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to the future All-Star games for MLB. I would say very, very likely the next city to get one will be Atlanta. And to me, it's fairly obvious why that's the case. Atlanta is selling out every single game. Their team is stacked right now. They have a brand new park, Truist Park. But on top of that, they had the All-Star game a few seasons ago taken from them in a completely ridiculous thing that was clear posturing by the MLB. Clear, virtue signaling. I'm not going to get into it because this is not a political video, but that's why I think Atlanta for sure. I know I said Toronto I thought could get the next All-Star game, but I do think Toronto, with their renovations, will probably be getting the 2028 All-Star game. And then you also do have, like, Fenway Park hasn't gotten an All-Star game in a while. Wrigley Field hasn't gotten an All-Star game. People were pitching Tropicana Field. Imagine an All-Star game at Tropicana Field. I would love it. And I also said yesterday, we do need to change the home run derby. We need to go back to the original format, and we need big-time sluggers. I want to see 600-foot home runs, man. Nothing against like Mookie Betts and Randy Arozarena and Luis Robert, but it's just, they're not power hitters. They're not home run hitters. They hit like 380-foot home runs. It's not entertaining. And on top of that, because it's rapid fire, you can't even see the home runs get hit. So, hopefully the MLB ends up changing that format, but that is the current situation surrounding the All-Star game. I just wanted to touch on the Oakland Athletics situation, the official large Howard Terminal proposal presented by the Oakland mayor at All-Star Weekend to Rob Manfred. That is official. That happened, and I do think there was discussion that was probably more based around future MLB expansion because Oakland is going to have a very good argument now that they have this full, detailed stadium proposal on why they should be the West Coast team if MLB wants to do one East team and one West. They have a very good argument over cities like Portland and Salt Lake City, and they've got a much more detailed argument right now. The only thing we've gotten from, well, I guess Portland is starting to really heat up their expansion push. I'll give them credit for that. They're starting to come out with really detailed renderings. Salt Lake City, it's really sad what they've done. They've got to get it together. They need to get a legitimate proposal. What they have currently is not even close to good enough. If you want people on board, come out with a really good proposal. It looks like a minor league stadium that was created by a second grader. Please do better. I really would love to see Salt Lake City get a team because the mountain backdrop is beautiful. But right now, Oakland is sensing that with MLB expansion, if Nashville gets a team, they're probably going to want to go to either Texas or, out west, and that's where Oakland could come into play for expansion. You might be wondering, baseball's already failed in Oakland. Why would they try it again? The reason is because it's a big market and it's a very complex situation. We don't know if they have a bad fan base. I do understand their attendance has been terrible, but it's very hard to judge their fan base because of how horrible the stadium is. If they had gotten a new stadium in 2011 or 2012, would they be averaging 25, 26K middle of the pack with a good market and a good TV deal? That would be a very ideal situation for MLB. Could that be an alternate history type thing to where, what if they had gotten a new stadium? It's just very hard to judge A's fans because I agree with MLB. Their attendance is really bad. Even when they were competitive, their attendance was really bad. But that doesn't really take everything into focus. You also have to look at the horrifically bad stadium that nobody's going to want to go to. Even people vacationing around the Bay Area are always going to choose to go to the Giants games because they've got such an unbelievable stadium and it's miles better than Oakland. So we will see what ends up happening. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.